Welcome back.
Welcome back.
We are into part 2. If you did not listen to last week's episode, you should stop, press pause,
Go back a week.
go back a week, listen to that one, and then you'll be ready to roll right into this one.
Yeah.
Yes.
We kind of
Quick recap of last week.
we just were talking about sort of my treatment journey, how I was diagnosed, and we just wanted to kind of do a recap. We've got some new friends here, and we're so happy to have you. But we talked about the fact that I did chemo and a stem cell, and then I did a double mastectomy, and that's kind of where we left it. So, yeah.
So we didn't really hit on the double mastectomy very hard. Not that we need to spend a lot of time on this, but
Yeah.
you also chose in doing this not to get reconstruction during the same period of time.
Yeah.
The why behind that?
Yeah, a couple of things with that. So I chose not to do reconstruction at the time because I knew that it was going to be hard. I knew that it would be adding to my recovery and my body trying to do new things and all that kind of stuff. And I just was really intent on, no, I just want my body to be as strong as possible. I want it to be focused on killing cancer. Those are the things I care about the most.
About how long into your treatment was this?
It was, I can tell you almost the day. I think I had my surgery on July 5th. So we started treatment the end of December that previous year. So 7-ish months. And some of the treatment was super hard. So we would been really going at it for a while. And so I knew, and also like Sydney was like 20 months old at the time. We were teaching her to climb into her crib with a step stool because I would have weight restrictions, and that just was a dagger in my heart, and I just didn't want to take any more time than I had to with that.
And knowing, I mean, as far as the plan, your treatment wasn't over. So that wasn't the last thing you did.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so that was my choice. And the other thing I'll say about surgery is sometimes I feel like people really care about my treatment, and other times I think, no, you should be a freak like me in this way. And here's one of those things. When I met my surgeon, we were talking about my surgery, I was saying to her, listen, if you go in there and things are bad, like, don't say it. I don't want you talking about me in a negative way, because even though I know I'm under, I know my brain hears it.
Subconscious, yeah.
So, like, be positive. Like, be, don't talk shit about me, basically. Mm-hmm. And she was great. She jumped all over that and was like, absolutely, I believe in that, and that was wonderful. But I just feel like we forget as patients that we have a say. Like, we can say things like that, and doctors aren't stupid. They recognize that connection is there.
Yep.
And now, while they might not bring it up to you, like, you can bring it up to them. You can show them how you are participating in your treatment, in all of it. So that was good. I remember waking up. I think I did stay overnight one night, but I remember waking up and looking down at my chest and just going, okay. Like, it didn't really feel that different to me,
Yeah.
I mean, it felt different. It didn't look astonished. I don't know.
So going back to, you got done with the stem cell transplant.
Yeah.
And now the decision for the mastectomy, was that your decision? Well, clearly it's yours. I'm not saying it that way. Did they recommend, or were they like, what do you think?
They recommended a mastectomy on the left side for sure.
They did?
Yes.
Because
the tumor was so big. I mean, it was 5 or 6 centimeters. It was really large when it was there. And so, yeah, that's what they recommended. And I remember checking with, I was doing integrative, medicine at Block, which is in the Chicago area at the time. And so I would meet with their doctor sometimes too. I remember meeting with their oncologist and asking her what she would do. Like, because I was leaning towards a double mastectomy, and honestly, the whole thing was with that was just vanity. Like trying to have one versus two seemed crazy to me. She agreed with me that she would do a double mastectomy too. So that's where that.
And if you don't know, again, the last episode we got into that much more.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was never. There's never any talk about not having at least a mastectomy. There was never ever any talk of keeping my breasts. Mm-hmm. So, and that's something that's changed, right?
For good reason.
Yeah. Yep. So after the surgery, I had a 10-pound weight restriction and a 20-pound daughter, and but other than that, it went well. And then I started radiation. So radiation for me was not my favorite. I'll say that. It had a lot of challenges. I was mentally exhausted, and I had spent every day being all in on killing cancer. And at that point, I was tired, and I wasn't sure that I needed to do it. And
all of this she's saying is so true.
And it was getting to be the end of summer, which for us meant football season. He was going to be gone all the time, and I had to quit my job at that. Like, I just didn't have it in me, but it was what happened.
What you said is I wasn't sure if it was needed.
Yeah.
When we talk about mindset and you going into your treatment, it has got to be an all-in, absolutely we need to do this, and this is why, and I'm buying. If you don't have that, it's just not going to go well.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
The other thing that went along with that was I had met the radiation oncologist at the University of Michigan, which it was 2.5 hours from our house at the time. And so she said, no, you could do it in Lansing, which would cut my drive in half. But she wasn't there. And I immediately, it made complete sense. You're literally driving that whole way to lay on a table for 3 minutes to get back up and go home. So it made complete and total sense. But nothing about this place in Lansing was the University of Michigan. And again, so the buy-in factor was impossible for me. And I went into there again, and it was just tough from the start. When I first got there, if you've done radiation, they kind of here I have my flat chest, and they whip out their Sharpies and they're drawing all over my chest, and they're talking about permanent tattoos and don't mess with my artwork. And I literally laid on the table with tears falling down my eye. I just couldn't get my head around it. Mm-hmm. I felt so much like they didn't see me as a person. It was really terrible. I fought super hard on the tattoos and we finally agreed on 2 of them, the smallest they could make them. Mm-hmm. It just felt I just think sometimes in healthcare we forget you're dealing with humans. Quit treating them
And I think early in your treatment, all of the things, the chemo, the double stem cell, even the surgeries or whatever, I think you had more grace for people because you didn't know how it should be done. You just, in some cases I'm saying, you just accepted those statements as, okay. Mm-hmm. And then you became a professional patient.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about 9-10 months into this process, and you didn't love the treatment, and you just went, F this. Mm-hmm. I'm done putting up with this shit. And that was your first time putting your foot down and going, I'm not going to put up with this.
Yeah, you're not going to treat me like this.
You're not going to treat me.
And here's the reason why.
Yeah, and it took you a while to get there, but I think some of the same things that happened then and that happened later on in all of your, many years of going, prior to that, you were just okay, just do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And then later on, wait a minute. No, there's a right way and a wrong way to treat someone, and you're not getting it. You're not treating me like a person, and that's what I'm used to.
Yeah.
I'm used to getting treated like a person from my oncologist and from her team, and I'm not being that. And you recognize that, and finally just went,
yeah,
I'm done. And you weren't done. You did the treatment and everything, but it wasn't a positive thing.
It was terrible. The only thing I'll give them some kudos for is they did recognize that I had shingles.
Yeah.
Early on. It did happen to be on a Friday, and it got me admitted to the hospital at U of M. Of course, I wasn't going to stay in Lansing, but, because it was in my eye. So they did recognize that. I wouldn't have known that. They did catch that early. I guess I should be appreciative of that. But everything about it was really, really challenging. Mm-hmm. So 30 sessions of radiation. So that it took us 6 weeks, all of 6 weeks, probably longer because of the shingles. Things would get pushed back a little bit. So when I was done, I was really ready to be done.
And as everybody knows, when you are stage 4 metastatic, you're never really done.
Right.
But you want to be done,
Well, you want to be done, but it's also terrifying, right? Yeah. So there's two things. Like, one, after I'd done all of these intense things for so long, and they kind of send you on your way with, I was taking tamoxifen, and I was probably still on Zometa at the time. Zometa was being used a lot more frequently than it is. I mean, like, you would get it more often than you do now. So I was probably on tamoxifen and Zometa, and then it's like, I don't know, October. I've always worked in the schools. I don't have a job anymore. I'm like, what do I do now? Like, this life. What is this life? I don't know. Like,
I'm good at being a professional patient at this point.
I'm good at being
because it's been your life.
Yeah,
or last year of your life.
Yeah, I'm really good at that. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know anything. The upside was that I joined a gym that was like not too far from our house. So a lot of days I set up a plan with a trainer there. It gave me purpose to get up and go, and I could take Sydney. There was daycare there. Like, we could go, I could work out. It was a good way to transition into this next phase. But it was hard and scary, and I think everybody, but like my friend Christy, thankfully could talk me through hours of the day when you were gone. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was the next phase, right, of just figuring out how that looks. So
the next milestone or whatever in who you are, what came next?
Well, I remember, I'm trying to think, we were probably doing scans every 3 months at that time. So, that's not much of a time between the roller coasters of scanning, right? Mm-hmm. It's so scary to do that, especially initially when you start doing that. But I definitely had some good scans under my belt. After, I don't know if it was 2 years, around 2 years, I think, I was always worried. I didn't know where all my mets were. I didn't want to know where all my mets were, but I would generally, a lot of times, I would have pain in my back. But one scan a couple years in showed slight progression in my back, so we switched from tamoxifen to Arimidex, which really, in the scheme of things, it changed nothing for me. Like, I wasn't having, I know people sometimes have trouble with tamoxifen. I wasn't having trouble with any of those. I switched to Arimidex. That's what I remember doing. I'm trying to think, during that time, I would have been like, I don't know. I remember it's probably during that time I turned 30. Like, I did a huge 3-day walk for my 30th birthday, which was like, gave me it gave me so much purpose, because like, we really trained, because I was walking 20 miles a day for 3 days. So 2 out of the 3 of us really trained for it. My friend Katie just showed up. She's amazing. But, and we also actually started the adoption process, which when I look back at it now, I think, man, we were insane. And again, just naivety took us so far in things. But I had done I had found a place that, I don't know, a place online. We were finally online at that point, and to kind of just say, would you work with somebody who's like in my situation? And I had an agency reach out to us, and we ended up starting the process to adopt. The reason I always correlate the 3-day walk, so my birthday is June 15th, which is also Father's Day weekend a lot of times. As I was walking into Chicago, I got a phone call from the agency saying that our son was going to be ready, like, to come home. She really wanted to call on Father's Day. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, that's what it looked like for a bit. And it must have been 2004 is when I started on Foslodex. So I had progression again at that point, and we started Foslodex.
Was this post-reconstruction or pre?
I don't know the answer to that.
Same general time.
Same general time. There wasn't, I would say, even during these years, like, it never felt like we weren't dealing with cancer. We were still dealing with cancer.
Agree, yeah. A lot of scares in there.
A lot of scares. Still doing.
I would say every other scan or so was a.
Yep.
Now, not all of them turned out that way once we got there.
Right.
We thought maybe something was more, but
yeah.
But a couple of them were legit scares and had to shift pace or go to it down a different track. But
yeah. We also learned, like, during that time, like, I tried to do scans locally, and that didn't work. Like, they overread things and stuff like that. So we just kind of learned in those years to, nope, it's worth the drive. Let's do it this way. And that's how
similar people reading scans. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how we would do things.
AI is going to be reading all scans soon anyway.
Yeah. So, yeah, 2004 started Foslodex. It was brand new at the time. It was one shot. And the reason I differentiate that is it's now 2 shots. But I've been on it so long that we're back to 1 shot. So, yay. My rear end appreciates that. That's a lot of scar tissue over 20 years. But during those, I mean, yeah, it's just been, I've always, like, 2004 to 2008, things were good. 2008, we had a scare. My doctor ended up adding Herceptin to the Foslodex. And then I did end up pushing back and saying, no, I want this really biopsied. And we did do a biopsy, and it turned out not to be cancerous. And we did stay with the Herceptin anyway, which I think, I don't know, I think it was her being cautious. It was me being okay with it. The problem with that is Herceptin can cause heart issues, especially having my history of adriamycin. And so after a couple of years of that, I was having heart issues. And so we quit the Herceptin after a couple of years. And it's been, nothing has changed from a cancer standpoint. So,
had some other side effects. You've had multiple broken bones.
Multiple broken bones. I didn't realize that. I mean, the Zometa, I think, helps protect, like, from big fractures, but it can cause a lot of small
long bones.
Yeah, it can cause a lot of fractures in smaller bones. I broke
spongy bone.
Yeah, both metatarsals and metacarpals. Some of them were harder to heal than others. So I felt like we always had a surgery sort of on the table or around the corner or something like that. And then in 2013, I found out I had osteonecrosis of the jaw, which is, again, a side effect from those Zometa. So for all of you using biphosphonates, use them. I think now they're actually using them only for like 3 years, and they're pushing them out. I literally was on it every month for years. So I think they've learned, you're welcome, I'm your guinea pig. But I hope that the side effects will get better for that kind of thing. The osteonecrosis of the jaw has caused some issues that have been, I don't have teeth on my backside, 2 of them.
You were a little weird. Most people have it in their mandible.
Yeah.
You had it in your maxilla, which is the
roof
roof of your mouth is your maxilla. which not everybody has. Same general area in the medicine deteriorates that area. Just most of the time it happens in the mandible.
Yeah, at one point I literally had like a pencil eraser hole, like communication between.
Because the bone had deteriorated.
Yeah, it causes loss of. Yeah. It deadens the bone because it causes blood loss to the bone. But yeah, so that was interesting. I had that for a while. I still kind of get a little funky when I blow my nose. Like there is some communication between the sinuses and that, but. Those are the big things. I should say, at one point, I'm trying to think, also probably the late 20-somethings, I had a rib taken out, a rib resected. Same type of thing where we had a scan that just we couldn't tell. Again, with bone mets, even so far, like you can't always tell what is going on. And we were talking about, do we change treatment or do something else? And I was like thinking back to 2008 going, no, remember when it wasn't. And so I really pushed to have it like biopsied. Well, where it was, ended up having to like take it out. And that was kind of interesting too, in that, do you remember that appointment so well? Sure. So we're meeting with the surgeon. My oncologist is like, this is the best surgeon. And he was a young guy and he came in and we're talking all about it and that it's going to be kind of intense. We're cutting muscle and all these things in my back. And then he's like walking out the door and he goes, I do some things robotically. I wonder if we could just go in and grab it from the side. And I was like, oh yeah, that'd be awesome. He goes, I think I might be able to do that. That's how I remember
exactly how it was.
He's like, I think I might be able to do that. I was like,
he was pretty confident. He was. I think I could.
No, I know, but he was like, I've never applied it to this, but I could, the robotic surgeries that I do.
You guys are good with it.
I could do this, and it just made the healing and everything so much better.
Became a minor versus really
major. Yeah. And then also within the last couple of years, I had my reconstruction redone. So my implants had been in quite a while. They were not exactly sitting the way. And so I think that was probably my last surgery.
So back to the original reason for this is, what has been your history and why did we start doing this? Let's talk about the why did we start doing this. And to do that, you kind of have to now, from the time you were done with treatment to 3 years ago, professionally, kind of what have you done?
Yeah, so I was, so I'm trained as an occupational therapist. I was working in the schools when I was first diagnosed. I had to resign from the job that I was taking just because I hadn't been an employee there long enough, and they're assholes, but that's another story. So I stayed at home with Sydney, and then Ty came home, and I was on disability. I applied for disability right at the get-go. I was approved. I had to wait the 5 or 6 months, which is still a thing, and I can't believe it. But disability did help us provided, something, which was great, and it allowed me to stay home, and us to make it through. And then I started probably early on doing some speaking, and I would get asked to do some things, and I started to build up kind of a speaking business a little bit the kids were probably in elementary school. But then I also started working again as an OT.
You wrote a book too.
Oh, I wrote a book. Yeah, the first thing I did was write a book. I wanted that done by my 30th birthday. Yeah. So that was originally called Letters to Sydney. It's now called Every Day We Are Killing Cancer. Mm-hmm. So the book was all about kind of that first year. It's all about the day to day, what I was doing, how I thought, how I, a lot of it. Every chapter starts with a letter to Sydney, because as a young mom, I think, so many of you can relate. I just wanted her to know who I was. I wanted, which sounds so egotistic, but it's also just true. I just wanted, I hoped to have the chance to know her and have her know me. So
So you wrote a book, then you started speaking.
Started working again as an OT in different things, and then in like 2010, a school job opened up. And I ended up taking it. So it kind of sidelined a lot of the other stuff. And for me, professionally, it's kind of just like, it feels like playing it safe over really doing what I was probably called to do. I think a lot of those, during that time though, in those years, it was really also about feeling a bit like an imposter. Like, I don't want to be known just for like living with cancer. I want to be known for helping people live with cancer, and so kind of just like what value am I providing and kind of thing. So yeah, I worked as an OT up until a couple years ago. I couldn't take it anymore.
Well, and along the way, in those years of working as OT, you were helping people.
Oh yeah, all the time. So this is the thing. Like, it just never goes away. It's never gone away. Especially like people. It's funny because I can meet a lot of people who don't know that I have cancer or know anything about cancer, but there's other people who will never forget that I live with cancer, and they'll be like, oh, you need to talk to so-and-so, or people find out about me, or they find the book, or they, whatever it is. So people over the years have always reached out to me. And part of it was like, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's really hard for me, especially back then, to kind of get involved one-on-one, right? And so, yeah, as I was ending being an OT, like full-time.
In the year or two before that, you seemed like you were answering/telling the same story over and over.
Yeah, and really also just being a lot more confident about, you know what? I don't care. I'm not telling you have to do this. I'm telling you this is who I am and what I believe in. Yeah. And so it didn't feel gimmicky to me. It didn't feel like, it just felt like this is my truth and I would love to share it with you. And you can believe it or not believe it, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And it also just, I wanted a way. This has been my driving force for all of this, is that I want people to be able to get information when they need it, as soon as they need it, early on. I think just those dark days resonate with me so much. In the beginning, I remember going to we went to a bookstore, right? That's all we had. My mom was like, I literally will buy you any book in here. And there weren't books available for people. Mm-hmm. And I know how the internet works, and I know how, you start Googling, and I want people to find some hope in the midst of all the just terrible, scary parts of the internet when you Google metastatic breast cancer.
Yeah.
So that's what really, those kind of things are like, this is what I want to do. How can I help people? That's why we started the podcast too, was like, now, like, hopefully people can, find out it's cancer, but then have some resources and be able to find some hope. Your plan doesn't have to be exactly like my plan. In fact, you should work from your strengths, but I'm telling you, like, you can live with cancer. Like, we can do it. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, that's where I am now in terms of, just trying. I just want people to know that there are people that are living with cancer and living life. Like, I don't want to live as a cancer patient. I think there's also a lot of people out there in this world that live as a cancer patient. My goal is to live / I am a cancer patient. Like, I don't want that to come first, right? The whole point of being here is to experience life. So.
When did we start the podcast?
We started the podcast in June of 2022.
Gotcha.
So it'll be 3 years already in June.
Okay.
But yeah.
So that ought to catch people up.
Yeah.
And she's still here.
And I'm still here. And yeah, we'll keep talking about living with cancer. So
awesome.
All right. See ya.